Ajax has always trained talented players. Each year, at least one makes his debut in the first team, something that often marks the start of a successful career. So why is it that Ajax always has so many good young players? This can't just be coincidence. Of course, the right training methods. But what precedes these is a process of recognizing and selecting young players with potential. Ajax pays careful attention to this. Many players with potential are followed intensively. Not only Dutch players, but also those from abroad.
Jullie komen hier te spelen. Loop maar door, jongens. Stel je maar op hier. Stel je maar op.
A lot of young players would love to play for Ajax, and there are regular opportunities for them to show us what they can do. We call these the talent days. The Ajax style of soccer requires players with many qualities. Just one good technique is not enough. You must be able to do more. To determine whether a player is good enough for Ajax, the club trainers work with the so-called TIPS system. T stands for technique, and especially ball control. I stands for insight, or we could use the word soccer intelligence. P is for personality, and is essential for reaching the top. Not only does a player need self-confidence and determination, but must also be coachable and able to function well in a group. S is for speed. This has two aspects, the speed of reaction and speed and acceleration on the ground. These key tips are also the elements we train at Ajax after a player has been selected. At times, the player may be confronted with all four simultaneously. Insight and personality are of course important, but in these films about coordination and speed training, we focus on the T and S. In this part, we concentrate on coordination training. In part 2, the accent is on speed training. Because they both have a lot in common, parts 1 and 2 should not be viewed separately. The one means nothing without the other. How the training sessions are conducted, technically as well as tactically, is determined by the Ajax soccer vision. The Ajax soccer vision is that the match is always the heart of the matter. The match determines how you train, individually and collectively. This means that all matches are carefully analyzed. Certain facets are highlighted, trained for systematically, and fitted into the total concept. For instance, if a player doesn't have the insight needed for the right follow-up, he might make a wrong choice, and the concept doesn't work. This is brought out in the training. So there is always a clear relationship between training and the match. Of course, you must try to develop your talents as much as possible. In this, many aspects are important. The key is to train exactly what is important for the player. How and what you train must be finely tuned because everything is linked. For instance, when you're training for speed, it doesn't automatically mean you improve technically. However, training one aspect does influence the other, but improving the one does not automatically lead to improving the other. So you need to constantly ask yourself what the effects of an exercise are and what your objective is. In this, you need to realize that a player is not a collection of loose elements, but that he is a whole, and that he is part of a team. At Ajax, we try to train as functionally as possible. Everything must be aimed at the game of soccer. What we mean is that you need to train for those things you need in the match. And what you need has everything to do with the Ajax system. In order to function within this system, you need the characteristics shown under tips. That's how talents are judged. At Ajax, we also have a clear vision of how heavy training should be. Naturally, this is not the same for all teams. Younger teams train less than the more mature teams. In most training sessions, the accent lies on technique and tactics. Of course, soccer training is extremely important. In the other training sessions, more emphasis is put on the physical aspect. In this too, teams can differ. Older teams receive more physical training, and not only because they train more. It has everything to do with changes that occur during the process of physical growth. This determines the proportion of football to physical training. Development in youth are never even. This is especially so where body growth is concerned. For instance, when you were 20 inches long as a baby, growing at 3 inches each year, at 18 you are about 6 foot. But that's not the way it goes. You don't grow 3 inches a year, but sometimes more and sometimes less. How much you grow each year is not a nice straight line, but looks more like this. So, the first years of your life, you grow very fast. After this, there is a period of steady growth. In this period, you grow between 2 and 3 inches a year. After the 12th year, there is a sudden increase in growth. You may then grow between 3.5 and 4.5 inches a year, the growth spurt of puberty. In boys, the growth spurt occurs between the ages of 12 and 15. In the one, it will start at the age of 12, in the other at 14. This natural difference also applies to Ajax players. The one is fully grown at an earlier stage. We call this an early developer. Then the other, a late developer. Here you see star of today, Clarence Seedorf, when he was playing in the youth teams. And this is Patrick Kluivert. There is a significant difference in their physique. One year later, Seedorf, an early developer, is in his growth spurt and has almost grown as tall as Kluivert. By 18, you can see that Kluivert, although a late developer, has grown taller. It's also very clear when looking at the growth pattern of the two boys. Zeedorf pretty well stops growing after his 16th year, while Klauvert keeps growing beyond his 18th birthday. During the growth spurt, the male hormones in the body increase, mainly testosterone. This ensures that muscles get stronger and faster, and that they get a better condition. Training in strength, speed, and endurance is therefore more effective during and especially after the growth spurt, rather than at the age of 9, for instance. A young player that enters the growth spurt earlier will increase his biological head start even more through training. When the growth spurt begins, you can see him gain strength swiftly. This process goes like this. For a late developer, this is 1 or 2 years later. As you can see, after some time, the difference disappears. Whether a player is an early developer or a late developer can be determined by comparing the change in leg and body length. When the changes are pronounced, you know a player is in the growth spurt. If he can handle it mentally, it could be good for his development if an early developer plays 1 category higher. Sometimes talented players show a sudden increase in staying power during their growth spurt. This can be measured by a decreasing heart rate at the same level of physical exercise. For this, at Ajax, we use the shuttle run. During the test, the heart rate is measured.
3, 2, 1.
During the shuttle run, you run constantly between 2 lines 20 meters apart.
Drop 5,5.
The time you have for this is constantly reduced. This player had an unexpected increase in stamina. When taking the test at 17, he had a heart rate of 167 after 1 minute. After 2 minutes, it was 176. The rest of the test looks like this. 1 year later, we see a big change. A decrease of 10 heartbeats in such a period is extremely rare. A top athlete would normally take more than 2 years for this. So changes that occur during growth affect the training methods, especially the ratio of soccer training to physical training changes. So physical training has more effect during and after the growth spurt. At Ajax, this is done in 3 different ways. Body coordination and speed is trained in all the teams. From 15 years old onward, soccer aerobics, muscle strengthening exercises, and speed or acceleration are added. In the old days, people had a lot of exercise in their normal life. Today, this is no longer the case. It is thus important to pay attention to body coordination during soccer training, especially to that part of the coordination that is important in playing soccer.
Korte, draai, 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 draai. Kaatsen, springen dan. Heel goed.
Coordination is the technique one needs in all movements. In football, these are handling of the ball, trapping and heading techniques, and the body's dummy moves. You must be able to execute all these techniques in all kinds of situations, while at the same time keeping the big picture in view. Whether you train for technique, speed, or strength, practice makes perfect. And even more so if you're talented.
Hij mag dus niet tegen de muur aankomen en niet buiten de vierkant, Benny Loepias. Oude smokkelaar.
So the success of every exercise lies in repetition.
Bal en wissel. Kort en dan meenemen. Neem hem mee.
Because after some time movements start becoming automatic, there is more time to concentrate on other things.
Goed zo, Mickey.
You get a better idea of how the Ajax system works looking at tactics, the way soccer intelligence comes into play. In Ajax youth training, much attention is given to training with the ball and to insight into the game.
Ja, dribbel. En dan ga je dus iets vooruit, hè. En je gaat al een beetje zo en over de bal heen kijken soms, ja? Oké, kom maar.
Why is so much emphasis put on training on technique at Ajax? Because, in the long term, technique always wins. Technique is the basis for all moves, not only in soccer, but in the whole of society.
Probeer hem veel te raken en probeer hem niet te ver voor je uit te spelen. En doe maar eventjes opzij.
In soccer, it is doubly effective to train for technique and skill between the ages of 6 and 14.
Hou die bal goed bij je, Ricky.
Because what's learnt young is yours for life. So if you learn it well from the start. Which is why Ajax employs motivated and professional youth trainers. With youth, you can never spend enough time on technical expertise with the ball.
Goed zo. En ook. Eén keer nu, daarin. Goed, Robin. Patrick. Hij daarin. Bal vast.
Paaltje, als je je na laat pakken, jongen. Paaltje, hou voor je paal. Hij komt er niet langs, Paal. Hij komt er niet langs. Hij redt het niet. Hij redt het niet. Paal. Kom naar Paal. Oh.
Young players are able to do all kinds of exercises without thinking or mental restriction. Their nervous system is ready for it. Just look at how quickly children pick things up. A question of looking and dexterity. At Ajax, we teach coordination between eyes and feet in the same way.
En dan neem je de bal niet tussen je voeten mee, maar weet je nog een andere manier, Mark? Ja, goed zo. Dus dan ga je hem in eerste instantie gewoon een beetje op de plaats, aan de voorkant van de voet zo. En dan af en toe ga je ook al om je heen kijken, hè? Dat is ook heel belangrijk. Want er zijn altijd spelers die om je heen lopen.
For the best results, you need expert trainers, interesting and challenging learning material, and good examples.
Hup, klasse jongen. Goed zo. En gelijk ook een beetje om je heen kijken, Mark. Hè? Als het goed gaat, hè, en je hebt de bal al helemaal onder controle, dus je hebt hem echt bij je, dan kan je af en toe al eens om je heen kijken. Probeer maar. Goed zo weg.
This is important to allow talented young players to develop quickly and properly.
Ja, en kort dan, hè. En probeer steeds iets sneller. Dat je de bal echt helemaal zo. Goed zo, Johnny. Goed zo, Ricky. Tik, tik, tik.
Training for technique with selected football talent has much more effect because they are already good at it. They stimulate each other to achieve even better. They want to be better than the other good players in the group. But for this, you need the right kind of attitude to give it your best.
Hij is goed. Ja, heel slim gedaan, Jordi. Nou, hebben we met z'n tweeën. Met z'n tweeën. Kijk hem, Mark. En neem mee. Kom, Robin. En goed zo, Mark. Ga door, Mark. Ja, goed gedaan. Applaus, Mark.
In this kind of situation, there is often a chain reaction. Because players stimulate each other, you get all the desired effects.
Hele goede beweging, Kootje. Langs, Jody, gaat er eens langs! Allemaal. Ja, gaat ie.
During the first years of the course, emphasis is placed on the development of a feel for the ball. At Ajax, we try to achieve this by practicing with a range of different balls.
Niet meer naar de bal kijken, doe je het echt op gevoel. Je moet hem met je hak naar je andere voet toe tikken, André. Dus even met je hak naar je andere voet toe tikken. Zo ja. Die kan het heel snel. En dan heeft hij toch die bal onder controle. Kijk, die Dwight zegt. Goed zo, wie kan hem ook achteruit meenemen? Dan moet je even X-benen maken, hè? Achteruit mee. Niet blijven. Kort raken, Quins. Kort raken. Elke keer kort raken die bal. Nou, als je echt over die bal heen aait, dan heb je er geen last van. Dan is het gewoon hetzelfde gevoel. En daar gaat het om, hè, dat je de oefening precies hetzelfde doet. Deze oefening met een foambal, dan met zo'n klein Ajax-balletje.
Because you have to use a somewhat different technique with each ball, gradually you develop a feel for the ball.
Ga ik even kijken wie het het mooiste doet. Hoog. Zo. Hey. Probeer hem kort bij je te houden.
Training with a small ball is more difficult than with a large one. But if you can control a small ball, then a large ball is no problem at all.
Controle, hè? Elke keer. Hij moet zeg maar onder je voet, hè? Hier vooraan moet je hem elke keer meenemen. Ja, die bal moet blijven rollen, hè? Elke keer.
Voetballen staan, Robin. Goed, Robin. Nou speel je de bal, Johnny. Naar de ander. Ja, die houdt de bal even tussen zijn voeten vast. En dan kijk je gelijk en dan speel je hem weer. Goed zo. Maar blijf achter je eigen goaltje, hè. Dus kort tussen je voeten. Speel. Hup, tik, speel. Goed zo. En gelijk overnemen en speel. Ja, kom maar. Okay.
Especially at this age, the foundation must be laid for perfect technique. If you start later, technique can be achieved, but it takes a lot longer. The younger a person is, the better the exercises become part of his inner fiber. All exercises should be mastered both with the left and right side. This ensures double or multi-sided control. In the Ajax system, you can only perform well if you have this multi-sided control.
Goed zo, Jordi. Dat is heel goed. Aan. Echt goed, een beetje voorover. Hup, klaarstaan om de bal te krijgen, links of rechts. En dan ga je hem achteren. En dan gaat het meer om. Precies mikken, dat de andere goed terug kan spelen. Zo, goed zo, Robin. Hup. En dan maak je het weer korter. En dan moet je opletten, want dan moet je iets sneller reageren zo. Zie je? Hup, goed zo, Robin. Ja, hup, en iets achteruit. Iets achteruit. Goed zo, goed zo. Links en rechts. Dus je neemt de bal aan, jongens, met één been, hè. Dan gaat hij naar je andere been. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. En dan speel je hem met het andere been waarmee je hem aangenomen hebt, moet je hem terugspelen. Hup, kort. En dan moet je kort tikken, hè. 5 keer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 en speel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 en speel, jongens. Goed zo, Robin. Hup. 5 keer Robin, hè? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 en dan spelen. Goed, Robin. Snel, hè, jongens. Tussen de goaltjes door. Goed, Robin. Meenemen en snel. En kijk, neem aan. Trouwens, in 1 keer, dat is helemaal goed, Johnny. Tik. Oh! Dat is het beste tot nu toe. Tik en kort. Goed zo. Goed, Robin.
It is at this age that the foundations are laid for good ball control. You learn to become master of the ball. This fits well with the development phase. Children at this age have the tendency to play with themselves and the ball, and have little notion of time and space. Only later, around 12 years of age, are more of the social skills developed. That is the time when emphasis is put on playing together. At this age, children begin to understand that they are a player in a team. In practice, this means that more emphasis is placed on playing together and passing. At Ajax, we start training in running technique with the youngest groups in a number of variations. This has to be done just as you start to build up soccer training carefully. At this age, you are still trying to master basic coordination. In this phase, only very limited corrections should be made. Only the very obvious mistakes should be corrected.
Op de voorvoet blijven. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Probeer je opvoeren en de tempo. En de armen en benen en coördinatie. Gewoon doorstrekken en de armen helemaal. Springen, springen.
You should also make sure that you handle only one subject at a time. Most children can only concentrate on one challenge at a time.
En nu tegen.
Hij dribbelt op me af. Wat doet mij nu fout? Rodney?
For children, at first, learning new movements is rather stop and go. You notice their muscles are being overtaxed. This can cause the use of unnecessary effort.
Je moet het heel vloeiend kunnen, dus ik kom op hem af, ik stop hem en ik neem hem even links.
Through correct instruction, good example, and a lot of practice, the movements become much more relaxed. The result of plenty of practice is that unnecessary effort disappears and the movements take less effort. Success lies in repetition. A lot of practice leads to the instilling of effective movements. Efforts at this stage are aimed at making movements second nature. After a time, you will use the correct technique without having to think about it. At Ajax, players are given exercises as homework.
Goed op zijn lichaam.
In time, rough coordination becomes refined coordination. This promotes refinement in the soccer. Movements become automatic. Only then can attention be given to how the Ajax system is played. Why is there so much attention given to footwork and coordination in the Ajax course? Because in the development of the nervous system, the hands develop earlier than the feet. This is why young soccer players must not begin with simply soccer exercises, but with suitable footwork. The nervous system is ready for this. It is a question of training the coordination between the nervous system and feet.
Prima. Die doet. Ja, die doet goed. Ja, ga door, ga door. Frequentie, frequentie, ja. Gaat heel goed. Iedereen geconcentreerd en perfect doen. Knie zet, niet. Van weg en met de voet. Weer korte afzetting en 3 passen. Armen. Stop. Schouderlijn blijf. Vooral.
Good footwork is very important for a soccer player. You have to adjust your style of running to the playing situation. When there is a lot of room and the ball is far off, then you will do this by running faster and taking longer strides. In a smaller area with the ball closer, you have to make sure that you can receive the ball at any moment and change direction. You will have to run while taking shorter strides without this decreasing your speed. We practice this at Ajax by using numerous obstacles. In this way, we force the players to adapt their stride length. The distance between the obstacles naturally depends on the age of the player and the objective you wish to achieve. When training at high frequencies, the distances are somewhat smaller. And if you want to practice a longer stride, then the distances are a bit longer. Or, as here, you take a step after the second stake. When you use the higher obstacles, you start to train the use of the knee. The height, of course, has to be adjusted to the level of personal capacity. You should only use higher obstacles when the technique is solid and constant. In these exercises, you are actually training the fine, quick coordination between arms and legs. Footwork is also the basis of kicking technique. If you are stable and solid on your feet, you will be able to develop a better kicking technique. Being steady on your feet is largely a question of coordination. Many exercises for footwork and leg rhythm in the Ajax system are instilled by repetition at the very beginning. This leads to more graceful soccer movement. Handling the ball within a confined area and kicking technique both require swift footwork. Many of the exercises used at Ajax are meant to improve the quality of the footwork.
Voorwaarts. Elke grij zij in terug. Niet gooien de onderarmen.
1, 2, 3.
Indrukwekkende spring.
1, 2, 3.
Zie je? Die was beter even weer.
1, 2, 3.
Heel goed, snelheid. Aanwiezen, 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 aanwiezen. Aanwiezen. Ja, tata, tata, tata. En weg. Tata, 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 tata.
2, 3.
En weg.
1, 2, 3.
En goed te spreken.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
To be swift on your feet, you have to be solidly placed in your soccer shoes. And for this, you need strong ankles.
Peter, maak je meer fouten, mag het uit. Kom maar. Nee. Ruitsnelheid van de springtouw. Met de hoogste snelheid die je hebt. Ja, heel goed. Prima. Goed. Eén been, andere been. Korte wissel. Heel goed. Prima opnieuw. Jullie gaat heel goed. Jullie gaat heel goed. Ja. Pats, 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 pats. Als een eigen been. Ja. Pats, pats.
In the spurt of growth during adolescence, you grow faster than you did before. But everything doesn't grow equally fast. Your legs grow faster than everything else. This creates a different ratio between the length of your torso and your leg length. Due to this, you take longer strides. This reduces the number of steps you take in the first few meters. Step frequency falls. In other words, the footwork declines. This is not good, because in soccer, you also have to be ready to react quickly in the correct manner. This requires good footwork. If you take long strides, you have less contact with the ground and are more easily brought out of balance. It is better to adjust the way you run to the situation. This usually means taking shorter strides. This will give you more frequent contact with the ground and a greater chance that your feet will be in the correct position when they need to be. You will have to adjust your stride length to the situation. Sometimes it is better to maintain your stride length as long as possible. At other times, it is better to change the stride length. Even at moments when you don't have possession of the ball, you should be able to react quickly. This is usually done with a wide stance, your feet wide apart. Reacting quickly is also easier when your muscles are flexed. This happens automatically when you run on the balls of your feet. By standing flat on the entire foot, you will never be able to react quickly. In soccer, not only is fast acceleration important, but also the ability to stop quickly. With each change of direction, you not only have to stop the inertia of your body, you then have to accelerate quickly in a new direction. After the spurt of growth in adolescence, the hormones help to make the muscles faster and stronger and give them greater stamina. This is the time when you can train speed, strength, and stamina. If you try to do this earlier, it has little effect. During this period, you should concentrate on soccer technique and body coordination. This makes up the T in tips. Later in the training, increasing attention is given to the other elements. Ajax also has clear vision on how these characteristics should be further developed. Training should be as functional as possible. That means that you should closely analyze what a soccer player needs. This allows you to concentrate on certain actions and use systematic training to improve them. And it's very important that the particular action is then reintegrated into the whole. At the end, you are left with a situation in which the whole is more than the sum of its parts.